Hi, this is the article that I did, Mystery of Use of Fictitious EIN for 1996 Charitable Trust. And what that's about is Jennifer Proharsky, on a different case, filed an affidavit with the court so a GAL could take over a case of Robert Hamlin. Now, this is the case of Dorothy Grega and Stephen Grega on the Grega Charitable Trust. And in this case, what happened is BDO, who was an accountant, filed tax returns for 2004 and 2005, and they never amended the tax returns for the charitable trust, which was a 1996 charitable trust. And in that 1996 charitable trust, the problem is that they used a fictitious EIN number and a fictitious charitable trust name to file the tax returns. And also, this is a copy of the document that Richard Gregoric did to set up a 2004 Grega Living Trust. And the Living Trust was issued an EIN number, but BDO put that 2004 Living Trust EIN number on the 1996 Charitable Trust. The Charitable Trust owned a log cabin, which was a medical office. They owned parking lots, houses, and they also owned the house in Mercer Island that Dorothy Grega lived in. And Richard Gregoric switched the house that was in Mercer Island from a charitable trust asset to a separate asset of Dorothy Grega in order to get her into a financial freedom. And then that thing was another case in point. So the house that was on West Mercer Way, that has never been put into the Dorothy Grega guardianship or the probate for Dorothy Grega. And the Stephen Grega Charitable Trust EIN number is right there, and that is not a real EIN number for the 1996 Charitable Trust. The problem with that is it's a fictitious charitable trust number. And so the thing with this is somebody should look into this case. Stephen J. and Dorothy K. Grega Charitable Remainder Unit Trust with that EIN number, that's all fictitious. And Donna Mae Curley reactivated it in 2007 with some other attorneys, and the other attorneys put a fictitious name for their law firm. So the problem is that none of this has ever been investigated, and there's no story that's been on this except for my little petty stories. And this case with Michael Longyear went to the U.S. Supreme Court in 2012. And it's really sad because Dorothy Grega herself filed a bar complaint against Richard Gregoric. And when the guardianship was entered into, the bar complaint was dismissed. It was canceled. It wasn't pursued. And she had all of these legitimate complaints on the bar complaint. She wanted to know why her money was put into a charitable trust. She wanted to know where the EIN number was. She wanted to know if tax returns were ever done for that. She wanted to know why Victoria Salas opened up a bank account at Bank of America in Kirkland using a fictitious EIN number. And it's just a disaster. And so the thing is that what happened to the money from the sale of her house? What happened to the money from the sale of the log cabin in Kirkland that was used for a medical office? What happened for all the lots that the Gregas owned? He was a medical doctor and she was the nurse, and they ran the medical office. What happened to all those assets? What happened to the $100,000 that was removed from the Bank of America? It was never put on Dorothy Grega's tax returns for 2007. And it was removed in 2007, so it should have been put on the tax returns for 2008. And Donna Mae Curley put in the court record on the probate that there were no assets in the guardianship. And there was $100,000 that was not accounted for. in this bank account that Victoria Salas opened up using a fictitious EIN number. And that $100,000, it was $200,000 that was wire transferred, $206,000 that was wire transferred from an account in Arizona to this account, and that $200,000 was never accounted for in the original tax return. And so the thing is, what is happening with all this? Michael Longyear ended up being the attorney for Dorothy Grega and Donna Mae Curley. And Michael Longyear never amended the tax returns that were done fraudulently. And in this case, this guy who set up the fictitious charitable trust, he moved from Seattle to somewhere, and then nobody ever asked him any questions. So this Stephen J. Grega and Dorothy Grega, the charitable trust, remainder trust, and then the Attorney General, Jennifer Proharsky, she had a court hearing on the Robert Hamlin case in this 2006 Robert Hamlin guardianship, and the courthouse was closed during that, and a guardianship was issued. How can Jennifer Proharsky, who is an officer of the court, she's a U.S. She was a U.S. attorney, and then now she works for the Attorney General's office. How can she have a court hearing when the courthouse is closed because it was snowing outside in 2012? How can she be allowed to sign a court order with Nancy Bradburn Johnson, who was the commissioner? They just went into the courthouse during a closed courthouse day and signed a court order for Dan Smirkin to become the guardianship of Robert Hamlin. How can that happen? How can Dan Smirkin be the guardian of Robert Hamlin when Jennifer Proharsky and Nancy Bradburn Johnson were the only two parties there? The courthouse was closed. I was in the courthouse filing a document in the judge's mailroom because the judge's mailroom is always open every day of the week. And so, I was on Marty Oakley's radio talk show in 2013 talking about all these discrepancies. And so that's another thing to look at. The Marty Oakley. See, this is my channel. And, the fictitious EIN number, that's one of those issues that needs to be investigated. It's all fraud. And Marty Oakley's blog, she